In the next series of videos, I'm going to show you the field to finish process inside of Business Center Heavy Civil Edition as well as AutoCAD Civil 3D. This field to finish process can be used for as-built mapping or design topos or just preliminary topography. The whole point is that it collects, your survey crew collects data, and using a feature codes and line coding, when it's brought into the software application, the software will connect the dots, draw the lines, place the layers and symbology in the project or drawing on its assigned layers, therefore automating the drafting process. The key to this is, one, having a unique set of codes that your field crew is using in their controller when they collect the data, as well as setting up the software so that all the configuration is completed so that the line works comes in on its proper layer and displays the proper method with the proper look and feel that you want in your mapping process. There's a few differences. I'm going to start just by showing you the real simple workflow. I'm not going to get into a lot of detail, but I just want to show you so you understand the field to finish process. And we'll start with Business Center. So with Business Center, the idea is I have a set of codes that I've gone out and collected, and that I'm going to use the same set in each software. So in this CSV file, if we take a look at it, let's go ahead and look at it in an Excel or Notepad. You can see that it's an ASCII file. It's got a point number, northern, eastern elevation, and a description. The description being the feature code or field code. And then you've got these control codes that tell the line when to start, when to stop, when to begin a curve, when to end a curve, so on and so forth. Right? So we're going to use that in both. And the collection process is similar. There's one difference with the rectangle command. In an Autodesk workflow, you want to collect and put the rectangle command at the last shot, the third shot, or the second shot, where within Business Center you put it at the first shot. But we're going to use the CSV file, like I said, in both applications. So in Business Center, all you do is drag and drop in the CSV file. You can use the import function, which will give you the same dialog box. You would tell it that it's a point number, northern, eastern elevation code format, and you click on import. All this does at this point is brings in the ASCII points, so you can see those points. You can easily turn those points off by toggling this information here and showing the codes. To actually get the line work to be drawn and the symbols to be placed, you can go to the survey tab if you have it, or basically the field data tab, and you select process field codes. So I want to make sure that I've got the right description. So I'm going to choose this description key set. I could have set that up in the settings, but I didn't do that, and so I'm just going to select it. So I can select any feature list and just tell it to go ahead and process the data. It's going to ask me for the report. I'll say no. So if I turn off the points, you can see there's the line work drawn based off the coding and feature coding, line coding and feature coding in Business Center. So let's go ahead and show you the Civil 3D process. The Civil 3D process, there's a couple different methods you can do with this. You can't just import the point or drag and drop it. You actually have to go through and use the survey data option. With the survey data option, you have to come in and you have to create what's known as a survey database. So let's go ahead and we'll call it demo survey. So this creates a couple external files in the database path that you can set in this database settings here. You want to make sure that the settings are set right. We want this to be US survey foot. This is something that you can pre-configure, so it's an option. You have to come in and configure it and then have it use this database settings when you create the project. And that causes a lot of confusion, because if you don't set this right and you're bringing in data, you may get a translation of your data if it has metric or international feet to US survey feet, depending on how the data is set up and what you're bringing in. In this case, because it's points, it really shouldn't matter too much and should be fine. But anyways, we'll just go ahead and click next. We choose the source type. There are different source types. We're going to use the same point file, so we're going to click that same survey points. And just like in Business Center, we're going to tell it that it's point number, northern easting elevation description. We'll click next. You don't have to do a network. That is something you do if you're doing a survey database where you've got a field book where your angles and distances and you want to balance that traverse or do an adjustment on it. You can choose that network. We'll skip it for now. You got some other settings you have to make sure are set, such as what figure prefix database is being used, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit, what line code set's being used, and some other parameters that you can set here or change here. You want the survey points and the figures to be inserted into the project or the drawing. Click on finish and the data is going to come in. Gives you a warning. There's a couple figures that the command failed. These two commands, I can tell you why it's there. It's because in the file that I brought in, I have it set for the Business Center method. So the rectangle command is actually at the end, and in this case it should be at, I'm sorry, it's at the beginning, and in this case it's looking for it to be at the end. So when it sees that rectangle command, it just fails it. So we'll not worry about that. I want to use the same point file to do this, but it's just a matter of where you put the rectangle command. So you can see the line works drawn there, the line works drawn here. If I turn off the points, you can see there's a couple things that are a little bit different depending on how it got coded, but for the most part it's pretty similar. Don't worry about the colors or the line type. That's just a matter of the settings and the setup of the drawing and the styles inside of Civil 3D. You can see the points here in the drawing as well. And to remove those, it's I can come in and I can freeze the layer in this case, where I have to come in and choose it. Now at layer, let me see here. So you can see these layers are a little bit different. It's a little bit harder to freeze those, and that's just probably because of the style. But there is ways to turn those off, such as going to settings and prospector and point groups. Well, there's this concept in here of point groups. If I go to the properties of the point group, again, because this is predefined and set up, I can move this to the top, say OK, and regen, and I have to also update that. So now that gets rid of the point. So it's a little bit more challenging to get rid of the points depending on how you have things set up. But that's kind of what the field to finish process is. We can get into more creating surfaces and editing and whatnot. And I'm going to show you that here in a little bit. But I want to show you the difference. Again, with Business Center, you drag the file in, you process the codes, and do whatever cleanup needs to be done. What I'm going to show you next is actually the setup that goes into making this happen. It's different in both applications, but it's key to making this all work.